All righty, folks. It's not ESPN's 30 for 30. However, it is my 98 for 98. The 98 seasons in the history of the New York Football Giants. I'm trying to get it done in 98 days. That ain't happening. However, I am going to get it done before the beginning of the season starts, which starts September 10th against those Dallas Cowboys. And we're magical season 1986, which just happened to be the 62nd season in the history of the New York Football Giants. Super Bowl championship, whatever you want to call it, number 1 overall NFL championship, number 5 for the New York Giants. This is 4th season for Bill Parcells as the head coach of the Giants. Each year, they started off pretty bad. He wasn't even sure if he was going to be around for his 2nd season after they started 3-12-1. But each year they kept getting a little better. From his first season in 83 to 84, they made a huge leap. But then from 84, they got a little better in 85, and they got better in 86. And of course, they wound up taking it all away. Started 3-12-1 in 83. They went to 9-7 in 84. Then they went to 10-6 in 85. And then I think it was 10-6. And then 14-2, and after the Super Bowl, 17-2 in 1986, and they won the whole kit and caboodle. Everything just bounced out very well. Very good defense. They were running the ball, passing the ball. All in all, just obviously an absolutely phenomenal season. It didn't start off. Well, it didn't. The first game of the season against the Cowboys, it was really, the Giants lost. Yeah, the Cowboys came. What was it? Giants were up 28-24, so the Cowboys had to score a touchdown. It was a very exciting game. Very exciting game. Either team could have won. Cowboys won. Give credit to them. They marched down the field and final minutes or whatever, and Herschel Walker took one in from 10 yards out or whatever it was. Ran right past Lawrence Taylor, who said he was totally exhausted. He had didn't make any kind of an effort to really try to tackle Herschel Walker. He said he was exhausted. He was tired. But it was a great game, really good game. And the Giants would only lose one more time the rest of the season, which wound up in week 7 against the Seahawks. The Giants were 5-1. They lost to the Seahawks. They were 5-2, and then they took it on home from there. They could have beat the Seahawks. Turnovers. One guy, who was it? Green, I think it was. I remember it had 35 sacks in one game for the Seahawks. They just couldn't block him. Phil Simms had 7 sacks on him. The one guy I think had 4. I think he threw 3 or 4 interceptions. 1 or 2 of them were in the red zone. But other than that, it was a great season. So let's see, what does Wikipedia have to say here about the New York Giants 1986 season? 1986 season was the New York Giants' 62nd season in the history of the National Football League. 62nd for the Giants, 67th for the NFL. The NFL started in 1920. Giants started in 1925, so the Giants are 5 years younger than the NFL is. And their 4th under head coach Bill Parcells. The New York Giants, who played in the National Football Conference of the National Football League, won their 5th championship and their first Super Bowl in franchise history during the season, led by a consensus league. It was like when you see, Lawrence Taylor win the MVP. So it's only been done twice. Alan Page in 1971 and Lawrence Taylor in 1986. But if you look at the guys, I think if you take all of the other guys, their scores combined, add them all. We got Joe Montana. We got some guy named Dan Marino. We got some guy Jerry Rice. Some guy like Walter Payton. We got some nice guys in there, right? Eric Dickerson, I think, even had a vote. We're talking Hall of Famers here. You add all their scores combined, they didn't even add up to what Lawrence Taylor was. It was just such a runaway. It was crazy, absolutely crazy. Everything came together for Lawrence Taylor. Led by Consensus League MVP, Lawrence Taylor, and Super Bowl MVP quarterback Phil Simms. Giants posted a 14-2 record during the regular season, tied for the best record in the league with the defending Super Bowl champion Chicago Bears, and was the best in the Giants' history. The 14, not the 2, but the 14 and the 2 to 14 wins was the best in Giants history. The Giants improved their 10-6 record. Okay, it was 10-6 in 1985. Won their first division championship since the NFL-AFL merger in 1970, and won their first Super Bowl against the Broncos. The playoffs, the Giants were the top seed in the conference ahead of the Bears. Now, the Bears and the Giants were both tied at 14-2. Once again, the Bears' defense was absolutely phenomenal during the regular season. So the Bears were 14-2. However, the Giants, due to a better conference record, wound up winning, getting the number 1 seed. And it didn't even really wind up working out because the Bears got knocked off. The Redskins went in there and knocked them off. But the Giants, they're what were they? 11. The Giants were 11-1 in the conference. The Giants lost to the Cowboys in the NFC. They lost to the Seahawks of the AFC, because at the time the Seahawks were in the AFC. They were in the AFC West. Now they're in the NFC West. But the Bears, they lost their 2 games. So the Bears were 10-2 in the NFC. So the Giants were the better record in the conference. The Giants were 11-1. That's why the Giants were the number 1 seed. Said it wouldn't have mattered anyway because the Bears got knocked off by the Redskins, and therefore the Giants wound up hosting the championship game. So it wouldn't have mattered. In the playoffs, the Giants were top seed. Let's see, they defeated the 49ers for the second consecutive year by a score of 49-3. And disposed of their divisional rivals, the Redskins, in the NFC Championship game for the 3rd time in the season. They beat the Redskins 17-0. And in the Super Bowl, behind Simms' 88% pass completion percentage and their strong defense, the Giants overcame a 10-9 halftime deficit and scored 30 second-half points while allowing only 10, and defeated the Broncos 39-20. After making the playoffs in 84 and 85, the Giants entered the 1986 season as one of the favorites to win the Super Bowl. They began the season with a 31-28 loss to the Cowboys before winning 5 consecutive games. After losing 17-12 to the Seahawks in Week 7, the Giants won their final 9 regular season games. Following the regular season, Coach Bill Parcells won the NFL Coach of the Year award, and 8 Giants were named to the Pro Bowl. The Giants' defense, named the Big Blue Wrecking Crew, finished 2nd in the league in points and yards allowed, probably behind the Bears. The 1986 Giants have been ranked as one of the greatest NFL teams of all time by fans and members of the media. The Giants also ranked number 12 on the 100 greatest teams of all times presented by the NFL on its 100th anniversary. It was a Giants team that popularized the practice of the Gatorade shower, which entailed the players dousing members of the coaching staff with Gatorade near the end of a victorious game. Yep. That pretty much, yeah. All right, so let's see the preseason. The Giants started off, let's see here. They were 3-1 in the preseason. They lost their first game, the first preseason game they played against the Atlanta Falcons on August 6th. In Atlanta, they lost 31-24. Then the Giants' second game was in County Stadium. They played the Packers. They won 22-14. Then they played home against the Jets, and they won 20-16. And then their final preseason game was home against the Pittsburgh Steelers on August 30th. They won 17-3 at home. So the Giants were 3-1 in preseason. So let's go to their draft here. Now, the Giants had an very odd draft here. They had 4 second-round picks. We'll go over these picks here, pick by pick. But they went up with 4 second-round picks. Now, the odd thing was, and I always point this out. I pointed this out in many, many videos. The Giants lost in the season before in the playoffs. They lost 21-0. Once again, as I pointed this out 3,000 times, my note, they lost 21-0. One more time for the hearing impaired. They scored nothing. So when you're going up against, the cream of the crop, which the Bears were in 85, and the Bears, once again, were a very good team in 86. Bears had a very, very good defense. Once again, in 86, the Giants scored nothing against them. Don't you think a priority would be to at least maybe add a little bit of firepower maybe to the offense? Nope. Bill Parcells and I guess George Young and all, they wound up, their first 6 draft picks were all defense. They had their first round pick, Eric Dorsey. They had 4 second round picks. Every one was defense. And their third round pick was defense. Their first 6 picks were on defense. I guess, I don't know. They thought, well, if we had to play the Bears again in the playoffs, we won't score anything because we don't have a good offense, but we'll time 0-0. We'll play like 3,000, I guess, overtimes, and maybe somebody will win. I'm not really sure. But when you go on the road and you can't score a point against it, I don't know. To me, I would be adding a little bit of firepower. But once again, I'm not the coach. I'm not the GM and all that stuff. I just thought it was really odd that they beefed up the defense when they couldn't score a point in a playoff game. But anyway, their first pick, so in the first round, was Eric Dorsey, pick number 19 overall. All right, very good, solid pick. The Giants really, really beefed up their defensive line in these first 6 picks here. So we go to round 2. Now, this is where the Giants had 4 picks. Let's see here. Where is their first pick? Okay. Pick number 17. 1, 2, 3. Okay, there it is. Okay, good. Okay. They had pick 17, 19, 24, and 26 in the second round. So with pick 17, which they wound up, they got from the Vikings, okay, unfortunately, they took Mark Collins, which wound up being a phenomenal pick for them. Very, very good, solid pick for the Giants. It was Mark Collins. But the problem is that they had rights to Gary Zimmerman, who they drafted in the supplemental draft of the 1983 supplemental draft. Unfortunately, I don't know. Gary Zimmerman did not want to play for the New York Giants. Did not want to play in New York. Did not like New York, but he did not want to be in New York. I said, well, it was he didn't want to pay the taxes in New York. He didn't like the city life. Didn't like the city. Didn't like the team. I'm not exactly sure, but he did not want to be in New York. So unfortunately, after the World Football League was over with, I forgot what team he was on. He played 2 seasons there. So in 1986, I guess they had the rights to him. They wound up trading the rights to the Minnesota Vikings because he did not want to play. Unfortunately, he wound up becoming a Hall of Fame offensive lineman. And he had a very lengthy career. But, at least the Giants, in return from the Vikings, they got Mark Collins. So they didn't, unfortunately, it did draft a Hall of Fame offensive line, which really, really would have helped the Giants. But from the Vikings, they wound up getting Mark Collins. Then with their own draft pick, the 19th pick in the second round, they took Eric Howard. So now they're really beefing up. After Jim Burt would wind up leaving after the 88 season, I think it was, Eric Howard took a spot. So at nose tackle. Then with the Giants' next pick they got from the Denver Broncos, the Giants traded Mark Haynes to the Broncos. The Giants took Pepper Johnson. So that wound up being, it was good and bad because Mark Haynes was a very good cornerback for the Giants. It's just that he wanted to get paid. And the Giants were, I don't know, the Giants said they were going to try to pay him, and then they kind of reneged on it, and so after a while, he just didn't trust the Giants. He didn't trust George Young. He didn't want to be here, so the Giants wanted to trade him away. But at least the Giants got Pepper Johnson for it. Then also with which wound up being odd. Okay, the Giants got another pick from the Vikings for the Gary Zimmerman, but it was odd because the Raiders, well, actually, somehow, let's see, this trade was between the Raiders and the Vikings, and it wound up including somewhere along the line included Brad Van Pelt in there, who used to be a Giant. So rather odd, but the Giants wound up getting from the Vikings another second round pick. So the Giants, they wound up taking Greg Lasker, who was like a defensive back, I believe it was, who wound up playing for like 2 or 3 years. He played a little bit sparingly. I'm not sure if he's like a special teamer or what, but I think he played some. He started a few games, but nothing super spectacular. But I mean, between Greg Lasker, Pepper Johnson, Eric Howard, and Mark Collins, the Giants did really, really good. Then with their third round pick, they wound up taking John Washington. So where the heck are they at it? So the 18th pick in the third round, they took John Washington. So between Eric Dorsey, Eric Howard, and John Washington, they really beefed up their defensive line. All right, so then in the fourth round, let's see, just want to make sure I'm not missing anything here. A lot of trades going on. The Giants traded away. Let's see, they traded. The Giants wound up getting Ted Watts from the Raiders. So, all right, then let's see, round 5. The Giants wind up taking Vince Warren. Round 6. Let's see. The Giants wind up getting, once again, from the Mark Haynes trade. Okay, they got Pepper Johnson, and they got Ron Brown, and then they got another pick. In the 1987 draft. Now they took Adrian White, which wasn't too bad of a pick, but that was in the 87 draft. So for Mark Haynes, the Giants wind up getting a second round pick, a 6th round pick, and another second round pick. So they got a nice little haul for Mark Haynes. All right, let's see here. But then the Giants, with their own pick, they wound up taking Solomon Miller, who was a wide receiver. He played a little bit in '86 because the Giants were kind of at one point where they were a little I know he played in the Seahawk game. They were a little decimated on in their wide receivers. So I know Solomon Miller played a little bit in '86. I'm not sure if he played a boatload after that, but once again, we're getting to the 6th round, so you can't expect home runs all the time here. Then they took John Francis in the 7th round. Let's see here. Draftees, okay. I took Francis, who was a running back. He played 1 season. That was it. All right, let's see where we at here. Whoops. All right, then we got, let's see here, round 8. Let's see, the Giants took Steve Sisowski. He played 1 season. He was a tackle. All right. All right, then round 9. Let's see, the Giants took John Lubers. Was he a tackle? So what the heck he was? Oh, my bad. Defensive end. He didn't make it into pros. All right. Let's see. Round 10. The Giants took Jerry Kimmel. And Jerry was a linebacker. He played 1 season, and that was it. And then, let's see here. Giants did not, let's see here. Giants traded away their 12th round pick to the Eagles. So the last pick the Giants had in the 1986 draft was their 11th round pick, which they took Len Lynch. There you go. And he never made it. He was a guard from Maryland, and he never made it in the NFL. So those are the Giants picks. All right, let's go here. Whoops. There's season statistics. I mean, overall, they had, a very solid season. I mean, Phil Simms, did a decent job. He threw for almost 3,500 yards. He had 21 touchdown passes, but he did throw for 22 interceptions. All right. Let's see here. The Giants' running game was very good. Once again, Joe Morris, over 1,500 yards rushing, 14 rushing touchdowns. Very, very, just a phenomenal season. The Giants ran for 2,245 yards, ran for 140 yards a game rushing. They only gave up 80 yards a game rushing. They gave up 10 touchdowns running the ball. They scored 18. So once again, the Giants had a very good, solid defense, but they were able to run the ball, control the clock, keep their defense on the sideline, keep the other team's offense on the sideline, and pretty much control a lot of the outcomes of the games. The Giants scored 23 points a game, which for them is phenomenal, but they only gave up 14.8 points per game. Once again, just, really, really good. Let's see here. I mean, once again, Sean Landana had a yards per punt, 44.8. He had a great season, especially in that championship game, punting the ball into the wind. Absolutely freaking phenomenal. What a punt display he had. Absolutely amazing. He was able to punt the ball into the wind. I can't remember who the Redskins kicker was, had the hardest time. Their punts would go like 20-something yards into the wind. It was phenomenal what Sean Land did. He reversed everything around what he did bad in the 85 when he whiffed on the one kick, and Sean Gale picked it up for the Bears and ran it in from like 1 yard out, I think it was, or just put the Bears up 7-0. So he made amends for himself big time in the 86, especially in that championship game. The Giants had 3 kickers. They had Bob Thomas in the first game of the season against the Cowboys. He missed a short field goal attempt, which wound up kind of costing the Giants a tie. I mean, the Giants, it was like a 30-something yard field goal. He missed it wide. Now, if he made the field goal, it would have been 31-31. Maybe the Giants win that game in overtime. Who knows? But then Joe Cooper came in. He only kicked for 2 games. And then after that, Raul Alegre finished out the season. He wound up 24 out of 32, 75% complete, success rate on his field goals. He was 33 out of 33 on extra points. Had a very good, he's a very good season for the Giants. He was very instrumental there. 22, was it 22, 21, 23, 21? What was it? It had to be 22, 20. 22, 20? 22-20 victory over the Vikings. He kicked 5 field goals. The Giants defense, led by Lawrence Taylor's 20 and a half. I mean, my goodness. They had 59 sacks. They did give up 46, though, sacks. But, just a very, very phenomenal season. Now, of course, the Giants started as I said, the first game of the season, they lost on the road, which was a very entertaining, exciting game. They lost 31-28. Tippy cat to the Cowboys. They did enough to win. As I said, once again, a very exciting game. So then the Giants came home, okay? Then they played the Dan Fouts and the San Diego Chargers at home. They just pretty much shut them down. The Chargers had 7 turnovers. They did a really good job shutting down the Chargers offense. The Giants won 20-7. Now, the third game of the season, the Giants went on the road. They played the Raiders in Los Angeles, and they were lose. I think it was 6-0 at halftime, and they wound up scoring 2 touchdowns in the second half, and they wound up winning 14-9. So the Giants were 2-1. Then the Giants beat the Saints at home 2017, and then they went on the road and they beat the Cardinals 13-6. And now the Giants are 4-1. Then they beat the Eagles at home 35-3. That's when they just straight up just massacred the Eagles. That was I think it was Buddy Ryan's first year, I believe it was. It was 1986. So the Giants won 35-3. So the Giants are 5-1. It's when they lost the next game. They went on the road. They played the Seahawks in the Kingdom. They lost 17-12. The Giants had 4 turnovers. I mean, they were very costly. I mean, the Giants had 307 yards of offense. The Seattle Seahawks had 218 yards of offense. I mean, the Giants outplayed them. It's just their turnovers were just between the sacks and I think Phil Simms had 3 interceptions. They were just costly, very costly. I know at least one of them was in the red zone. The Giants had the ball toward the end of the game. They were driving for the go-ahead touchdown. They got down around like the 35-yard line or somewhere of the Seahawks, but they needed a touchdown. I think Phil Simms threw an interception. You know, was what it was. So now the Giants are 5-2, but they would not lose the rest of the way. They beat the Redskins on Monday night, 27-20. The following week, the Cowboys came to town. The Giants hung on to win that one 17-14, although the Cowboys outplayed the Giants. Giants had 245 yards of offense. The Cowboys had 408. Giants only had 46 yards passing that whole game. Giants had 46 yards passing. The Cowboys with a backup quarterback had 306 yards passing with a backup quarterback. So the Giants were lucky to hold on and win that one. Then the Giants went on the road and they beat the Eagles 17-14. So now the Giants are 8-2. The Giants behind Raul Allegre's 5 field goals. They beat the Minnesota Vikings 22-20. Once again, that was a very entertaining game. So now the Giants are 9-2. Then the Denver Broncos come to town. This is where I was going to start. I started having getting a little antsy, especially when the playoffs, especially when the Super Bowl round rolled around. Because I'll tell you what, if you look at this game, the Broncos I don't want to say dominated, but the Denver Broncos were the better team. The Denver Broncos came to Giants Stadium, and the Denver Broncos played better than the Giants did. The Broncos had 405 yards of offense. 405. They had 26 first downs. Giants had 14 first downs. The Giants had 262 yards. Once again, the Giants had 119 yards passing. With John Elway, they had 325. The difference in the game was the interception that George Martin had. It was almost like a 14. It was at least a 10-point swing because it took 3 points off the board at least for the Broncos and gave the Giants 7. 10-point swing. You take this one screen pass away where George Martin jumps up, tips the ball up to himself, and runs it back like I forgot what it was. Let's see. How far was this? I mean, it took him like an hour and a half to get down the field. I was shocked that nobody came and actually tackled him. It was 78 yards. So, I mean, pretty much what it took, like, you know, I'm going to say probably 3 points off the board for the Broncos, but gave the Giants, because George Martin picked it off, ran it back almost 80 yards for a touchdown. So, I mean, it was about a 10-point swing right there. Broncos are going in for a score, and the Giants picked the pass off, ran it back for a touchdown. So, I mean, the Broncos, you know, did outplay the Giants in the game. It's just the turnovers is what killed the Broncos. So when the Super Bowl rolled around and it was at a neutral site, I'm thinking, man, we might be in some trouble here. But thankfully, I was wrong. So after the Giants beat the Broncos, they were 10-2. Then they played the San Francisco 49ers. The Giants are down 17-0 at halftime. Monday night game, national televised, this, that, and the other thing. Blah, 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 blah. This was the Mark Bavaro game where he caught the ball. Ronnie Lott and 312 other San Francisco 49ers were on his back, and he just kept carrying them. And I remember in an interview, he said, yeah, I kept thinking to myself, why aren't they tackling me? Well, he had like 2 or 3 49ers on his back, and he went like 18 yards with them. I think it was. It's just crazy. I know one of them was Ronnie Lott. So the Giants scored 3 second-half touchdowns and wound up winning 21-17. That was a very exciting game. So now the Giants are 11-2. Then they beat Then they go to Washington. They beat the Redskins for the second consecutive time. And let's not forget, the Redskins were a fantastic team. Every time the Giants won their Super Bowl back then, The following season, the Redskins won. 86, the Giants won. 87, the Redskins won. 1990, the Giants won. 1991, the Redskins won. So, and let's not forget the Redskins from 1982 to 91. Those 10 seasons, the Redskins went to 4 Super Bowls. So the Redskins were a very good football team back then. So for the Giants to beat them 2 times, and they want to beat them 3 times, but to beat them the 2 times in one season was very impressive. So the Giants won 24-14. So now the Giants are 12-2. They would finish off the season playing the final 2 games at home. They beat the Cardinals 27-7, and then they whooped up on the Packers 55-24. But the Giants at halftime, that was a close game. I know Parcells. What was the score at halftime? This was a close game. The Giants won by 31. What was it? It was 24-17 at halftime. And wasn't even that, was it? Oh, it was. Okay, no, it was 24-17. Yeah, 24-17 at halftime. So the Giants outscored them 31-7 in the second half. So I know they blocked the punt and ran it back for a touchdown. Tom Flint blocked the punt, ran it back 36 yards for a touchdown. But, and actually, at one point, halfway through the third quarter, it was 31-24. Then the Giants scored 3 straight touchdowns and kicked the field goal to pull away. But, it was at one point, it was kind of a close game. But so after the Giants beat the Packers, 55-24, now they're 14-2. All right. As I said, the Chicago Bears wound up 14-2 as well, but the Giants, due to a better conference record, they were 11-1. The Bears were 10-2. The Giants were the number 1 overall seed. All right, so in the AFC, we'll go over the AFC. The Patriots were 11-5, and the Jets were 10-6. So the Jets got one of the wild card spots. The Cleveland Browns were 12-4. All right, they won the AFC Central. The Denver Broncos were 11-5. They won the AFC West, and the Kansas City Chiefs were 10-6. So they were the other wild card team. So the Jets and the Chiefs were the 2 wild cards. All right, so in the AFC, so in the wild card weekend, at Giant Stadium, the Jets would prevail 35-15. So in the second round, the divisional round, all right, that was where the Browns and the Jets played in overtime. The Browns would win 23-20. Now that wound up being a very, very good game. The Jets were, let's see here. There we go. Does it show a box score? Nope. Oh, wait. Does it show a playoff game? Yep, there it is. Browns, does it show it? No, it doesn't show it. Nope. Anyway, as I said, the Jets were winning and the Browns scored. I don't know if the Jets were winning 20-10 or they were winning 20-13 or so, but the Browns tied it up toward the end of the game, tied it up, sent it into overtime, and the Browns winning in the second overtime period. Mark Mosley wound up kicking a field goal and wound up winning 23-20. So that wound up being a very exciting game. Very, very exciting game. Actually went to 2 overtime periods. But in the divisional round, the Broncos beat the Patriots 22-17. Now, let's not forget the Patriots were a very good team because the year before, 1985, the Patriots wound up going to the Super Bowl. So the Broncos won 22-17, setting up the championship game between the Denver Broncos and the Cleveland Browns, right, which would go to overtime. Now, let's not forget the Cleveland Browns were winning 20-13. The Broncos had the ball on their own 2-yard line. It was a little over 2 minutes to go in the game, and from there on, it was called the drive, right? John Elway takes his team. It's like 3 minutes to go in the game. 98 yards for a touchdown. He hits, I can't remember the name of the receiver, hit him in the end zone, fired the ball. It almost went through the guy's chest. Guy went down to his knees to catch the ball, tied it up, and they wound up winning in overtime 23-20. So that sent the Denver Broncos to the Super Bowl. So then in the NFC, Obviously, the Giants were 14-2. The NFC East, they wound up the number one seed because they nudged out the Bears on the tiebreaker. The Washington Redskins were 12-4. 12-4, and they were a wild card team, right? The Chicago Bears won in the NFC Central. They won. They were 14-2. In the NFC West, you had the San Francisco 49ers with 10-5-1. They just nudged out the Los Angeles Rams, who were 10-6. So the Washington Redskins and the Los Angeles Rams won the wild card. All right. So in the wild card, the Redskins would win 19-7, sending the Redskins to the divisional round of the playoffs. So, and rather shocking. I mean, I was rather shocked. I'm pretty sure it was really cold that day. Let's see here. All right, let's see here. It should tell me how. I thought it was really, really cold. The Bears went to Soldier Field. They should say how cold it was. How cold was it? It was 33 degrees. The wind chill was 27. Okay. The Bears were favored by 7 points, though, because the Bears were a very good team. But the Redskins took it to them. Redskins really did a good job. Held the Bears at 220 yards. The Bears turned the ball over 4 times. I mean, the Bears were only 11 of 31 on passes. So the Redskins went in and out. But I was rather shocked because, I mean, the Bears were 14-2. They were the defending Super Bowl champions. They were at home, right? Soldier Field, this, that, and the other thing. They had a great defense, but the Redskins went in there and took it to them. I was rather shocked. Also, I guess to some extent, I was rather happy because I knew the Bears were a very good team. And I know since the Redskins wound up beating the Bears, and I knew the Giants beat the Redskins 2 times during the season, I knew it was tough to beat the same team 3 times, especially a good quality team like the Redskins. Very tough to beat them 3 times in the season, but I know the Giants were capable of doing it. So I felt a little bit more at ease when the Redskins beat the Chicago Bears in the playoffs there, because I had no idea what would happen if the Giants had to play the Bears, because the Bears once again had a very, very good defense that year. So the Redskins beat the Bears 27-13, and the Giants beat the 49ers 49-3. Jim Burt knocked Joe Montana out of the game. On a play, Lawrence Taylor picked the pass off because it was way short. I think it was supposed to be thrown to Jerry Rice like an additional 10 yards down the field, but the ball was thrown very short. Lawrence Taylor just happened to be in the zone there. He picked it off, ran it back down for a touchdown. It was, the Giants romped all over them, 49-3, which set up the championship game. All right, with the Giants and the Giants and the Redskins back at the Giants Stadium. This is the 3rd time that the Giants and the Redskins would face each other. So the Giants, it was like 40-mile-an-hour wind gusts, and it was just horrible. Giants, I think, kicked off, and they went into the wind, I believe it was, and they scored a touchdown. I think they scored all their points in the first half, if I'm not mistaken. I think they were up 17-0 at halftime, and there wasn't no scoring in the second half, I believe it was. Is that what it was? Yeah. Raul Allegre kicked a 47-yard field goal. I think that had to be with the wind then. See, the Giants won the toss, and I think they elected to go with the wind, I believe it was. They didn't elect to kick the ball. They didn't elect to receive it. They elected to take the direction. So they went. So Harry Carson said, we're going to go with they won the toss. He said, we're going to take the wind. So the Giants scored 10 points in the first quarter to go up 10-0. And then they drove for the dagger. For the jugular that pretty much finished the game off. The Giants scored a touchdown going into the wind to make it 17-0, I believe it was. Joe Morris scored on a 1-yard touchdown to make it 17-0 at halftime. And the one interesting thing was that the Giants, their run defense was just absolutely phenomenal in this game. The Redskins ran the ball 16 times for 40 yards. And it was funny. The Redskins had George Rogers and Kelvin Bryant, two very good running backs. Very good running backs. And the Giants shot them down, average 2.5 yards a carry. It was interesting because they had a hard time moving the ball. They had a hard time getting first downs, running the ball. And I remember Jim Burt saying, he was on a video. I don't know how many years later it was, 20 years later, 25 years later. I don't even know. But Jim Burt's like, they couldn't run the ball on us then. And he's like, if they were still running the ball to this day, they still would not have scored a running touchdown on us, I think he said. So, I mean, their run defense was just spot on that day. Really, really good. So the Giants wind up winning 17-0, sending them obviously into the Super Bowl. Okay. Now, we all know they were down 10-7 at halftime. They had a goal line stand, and wound up being where Rich Carlos missed a 20-something yard field goal. He just kicked it wide after the Giants had a goal line stand. I mean, I think it was it? I think that they were up 10-7. I think, if I'm not mistaken, the Broncos, and I was worried about. I was worried about the Broncos just moving up and down the field, and they were up 10-7, and they scored 10 points in the first quarter, and then I think in the second quarter they started marching down the field, and they got down to like the 1 yard line or so. The Giants had a goal line stand, 3 straight plays, kept them out of the end zone. And Rich Carlos, maybe it was an 18-yard field goal he missed. 19-yard field goal. Somehow he missed it. But I mean, if they score there, now it's 17-7. I mean, it's like we're maybe talking a whole different ball game here. But I'm saying the Giants had a hard time stopping them. But once they got that safety, once Elway got tackled in the end zone by George Martin and made it 10-9, kind of turned the whole tide right there. Turned the whole tide, because the Giants would wind up scoring 30 in the second half. The Giants would wind up scoring, 30. They would score 30 of the next 33 points in the second half. They would wind up going up 39-13, and then the Broncos, with 2 minutes left to go in the game, on a 47-yard pass play from Vance Johnson, from John Elway to Vance Johnson, they made it 39-20. So it made it somewhat respectable, but it was 39-13 at one point. I mean, it was relative. I mean, look, the Giants had 24 first downs. The Broncos had 23. The Broncos had 372 yards. The Giants had 399. There was only one turnover in the whole game. Right? The Giants had the one safety. I mean, so it wasn't, the Giants had one interception. That was it. The Broncos fumbled 2 times, but they didn't lose any of them. I mean, that goal line stand wound up being huge. The Giants were kind of able to run the ball. They ran the ball 38 times for 136 yards. The Broncos ran it 19 times for 52 yards. They averaged 2.7 yards a carry, and that included John Elway running. John Elway was the leading carrier. He ran the ball 6 times for 27 yards. So basically, the rest of the team ran the ball, let me see my spider, 13 times for 25 yards. The rest, their running backs couldn't even get 2 yards a carry. So the Giants' run defense was really, really good. So once again, it was the running of John Elway. He's the one that got it where their running average was up to 2.7 yards a carry. Other than that, their running backs couldn't even average 2 yards a carry. Meanwhile, the Giants, they did a decent job. Joe Morris wasn't super spectacular. He ran the ball 20 times for 67 yards. But I mean, the rest of the team, they just solid. They ran the ball 38 times. I got 136 yards. So very, very respectable. Only 3.6 yards a carry, but I said, and out of that 52 yards for the rushing for the Broncos, let's say 4 of them came on John Elway. The quarterbacks, it wasn't a quarterback sneak, it was like a quarterback draw, I believe it was. He called his own number. So, yes, I mean, just the Giants defense really, really did a very, very good job. I mean, once again, let's not forget about Phil Simms. I mean, he completed 4 passes to Mark Bavaro, 4 to Joe Marsh, 4 to Maurice Carthon, 3 to Stacy Robinson, 3 to Lionel Manuel, 2 to Phil McConkey, 1 to Lee Roussan, and 1 to Zeke Moet. And Phil McConkey, one of those 2 receptions, actually his 2 receptions, one was on a flea flicker, and the other one was when the ball bounced off of Mark Bavaro's shoulder. And Phil McConkey just happened to be there. He dove and caught it, right? So, I mean, I said, and Phil Simms was 22 out of 25. He set the NFL, the Super Bowl record for completion percentage. He was the MVP. So let's not forget about him. He had his day in the sun. It was nice. It was really, really nice to see, Phil Simms, I mean, because all that, I don't know, people were picking on him. He had the first couple of years he was injured, 82 and 83 or 81 and 82. He was injured, or 81, 82 and 83. I think he was injured. 80 or 81 and 82. A couple 2 years in a row he was just injured. And then in 83. There was Parcells was like, well, do I start Bruner or do I start Simms? And he wound up choosing Bruner over Simms. I mean, Simms missed a couple seasons due to injuries. Simms got benched, for favor of Scott Bruner. I mean, Phil Simms had a lot, it's some rough times, especially early on. So it was really, really nice to see things really come together for him, especially in this Super Bowl. 22 out of 25, absolutely phenomenal. 88% completion percentage in the Super Bowl. The defense came together. Pretty much everything really, really came together. The Giants offense, wasn't the greatest show on turf, but they were able to pass the ball enough. They did a very good job running the ball. They're obviously with Lawrence Taylor sacking the quarterback. Leonard Marshall had double-digit sacks. Their run defense was really, really good. Everything, 1986 really, really came around for the New York Giants. Everything came together, and they got it, baby. They got it. Super Bowl number 1 and championship number 5, 1927, 1934, 1938, 1956, and it had to wait 30 years. So from 1956 to 1986, they finally got their 5th championship. So 1986 would be a very, very good season for the New York Giants, one of their best teams ever, possibly their best team, 98 years later, quite possibly their best team ever. 14-2, and after the Super Bowl, they were 17-2. So fantastic season. Unfortunately, 1987, they would have a strike. The Giants lost their first game of the season. Then they had the 3 weeks, and then they missed. It was week 2, I think. The game 2 was missed. I think it was because of the strike, and then they had 3 weeks in a row where they had scabs in there. And before the Giants came, they came back. They were 0-4. They lost their 5th game. Then they finally won a game. So they were like 1-5 after they played 6. I mean, 1987 was not very good. So. But it is what it is. But anyway, 1986 was an absolutely fantastic season for the New York Giants. And I said, I'll be back again tomorrow with the 1987 season for the New York Giants, which just happened to be the 63rd season in the history of the New York Giants. I'll see you then.